Interview and job search strategies that work. I want to talk today about action. Part of the reason, probably really the main reason I have this podcast is to just help, really just help people get jobs, really, IT jobs, that is, right? And it doesn't always look like an IT job when you first see it. Um, and I'll tell you an example, right? I was in Sam's Club the other day. I was getting my spinach for my shakes, my smoothies, not shakes, but smoothies. So I do a spinach. What do I make? Okay, so I have this Ninja, right? It's an 84. This is me looking at it right now, actually. 84 ounce, is it? Let me see here. 72 ounce. Sorry. 72 ounce Ninja. And inside that goes almonds. I put some almonds in there. I put some spinach. I put 2 bananas, and I put 2 avocados, and then 2 dates. What else do I put in there? I think that's it. Water, of course. Yeah, avocado, banana, spinach, and I have used kale in the past as well. Um, and so I was there in Sam's Club getting my spinach for my shakes, or smoothies. And I just, sometimes when you talk to folks, you just, I looked at his name tag and I was like, oh, kind of pronounce it a little bit. Okay, kind of interesting name. I was like, huh, okay. And just chatted a little bit. And I just felt compelled to tell him about Amazon. Amazon, they have jobs, right? Amazon. And and he said, oh, really? I said, yeah, they pay. They're paying like 15 an hour. 15 an hour. And they do distribution center where you might see it on TV, or they do they go out and they're in this big building and mail comes in, you sort it for different zip codes and whatnot. They call that a distribution center. Yeah. At any rate, I just told him that, and he's like, oh, okay. And automatically, he said, can I give you my email? And I said, yeah. And he gave me his email. I emailed him the link, the Amazon.jobs link. It's Amazon.jobs is the link. And off he's going. Imagine that, right? And I guess my point is, if you have, yeah, sometimes you have to convince people to get jobs, or sometimes you have to convince people to better themselves, whatever that is. If it's making not, working at Walmart and there's a job paying nine and they want to make more and it pays 12 or 13 an hour. If it's kind of one of those things with, like, I call it just a human dynamic of taking action. Whereas one individual, you just tell them a little bit of nugget, a little bit of information, and they go bam, and they're off, and they got it. And then other folks, you have to talk to them a while until it makes sense, or they want to do it right. Like, I can tell you, I have a friend. I won't name any names, but for a whole year, he didn't have a job. For a whole year, can you imagine? And all it was is he needed a test called the Security Plus. And the Security Plus was $300, right? So went without a job for a whole year for $315. And, he still doesn't have it, by the way. But even if you take it twice and you fail it once, good to go. I know another person who hasn't had a job for 8 years, and all they need is a Security Plus, and they have a job, and they're good to go. And it's in the defense industry, actually, as a contractor overseas. And so you ask yourself, like, what is that? And there's two sides to the story, I guess. One is like, Jim Rohn talks about it in his talking, his speech. He'll say, like, what does he say? He says, I I won't sign up for that class, he says. So I guess what I'm saying is, you know, I don't sign up for that. It's sometimes difficult, though. I'll tell you, trying to help folks. And that's where the website comes in, actually. GaryMcNeelyIT.com. There, people want to take action, go to the website. There's a couple videos on there. There's my podcast. Everything I talk about in my podcast is helpful for folks to get a better job, whatever it is. The one underlying thing, I think that it's fear, right? And who doesn't have fear? Everybody has to deal with this stuff every day. It's individuals in a person's life who, can say one little thing to that person, and it just totally disrupts their mindset. And I'm no different. I mean, people tell me all the time stuff. I get the same stuff as everybody else. I'm no different than anybody else. And I'll tell you a story. Recently, someone said something about, because I talk to a lot of people, and I like to, I just talk. When I talk to somebody, I really want to understand, because I want to live, like when they talk to me, I want to live through their eyes, basically, or through how they talk. I put pictures in my mind like, oh, that's what that's like. So I want to try to live it, basically. The story, it's really important. So I kind of have a real good idea of what it is. Versus just like somebody, you've had these conversations before where you're talking to somebody and they say, oh, yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure. Oh, yeah, yeah. And after a while, there's no story there. And then you meet somebody, oh, that person goes away, back to their house, back to their town, back to the city, whatever, and you don't see him again. And what happens is you miss the opportunity if you just, yeah, sure, to gather the information. I will also say it works on the other way, is where someone, if you hang around somebody, if you know somebody for a long time, it is sort of gets the same way all the time, repetitive. Just like when I'm saying sometimes it sounds repetitive, where the person's saying something and you already know what they're going to say, essentially. And sometimes maybe it's the program reminded me, but it's almost like sometimes understanding what they're going to say next and having just the discipline not to interrupt and kind of just hear it out and say, well, what is that story like? What's the approach? And kind of take a step back, for me anyway, and just say, what are they trying to say here? How can I better them? It's a short conversation. What can I do? What can I say to, what are they trying to tell me? There's a need there. Well, how do I make them feel better? Meaning, they say, did you do something? Or have you tried this? And if you didn't, you might want to say yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's great. And you make a story up, right, or whatever. Just to make them feel better. I know it's whatever, but if you just do that, entertain them, because most people like to hear the sound of their own voice when they talk, and they like their ego. Everybody has ego, right? So everybody likes to feel, oh, hey, make me feel great or whatever. Friend of mine, Greg, always says, what does he say? He says, he goes, well, that's great. Well, why don't you, enough about me. Why don't you tell me about me? Basically, it's classic stuff. Yeah. Anyway, wish the person well that I talked to at Sam's Club so that he can get a job. And, if that's how do you, it's almost like there's an old adage. You go and look for diamonds, right? And sometimes even for myself, I have an anticipation that if I talk to somebody sometimes, well, maybe that's the next person I need to talk to. so they can give me that nugget of information. I'll tell you who generally does this well, what cultures, right? Is the Indians. India, right? The country India. So I don't know if you know this or not, but a lot of them, what they do is they just listen. They're very good listeners. So they listen to what you have to say, and or even just in a coffee shop. I've kind of picked this up, this kind of this skill a little bit, where I hear somebody talk in a coffee shop or whatever, and I just like listen and okay, how can I apply that to my life? What can I do to apply that little nugget of information? What can I do? It's I guess it's almost like this. Learn with the intent to teach, or learn with the intent to um do something with that knowledge. How can I use that knowledge to my benefit? Um and I'll tell you a story actually real quick on this. I was in San Francisco. No, I was in Palo Alto a number of years ago. I was in a coffee shop, and I was there to take a Microsoft cert, actually, one of the MCP, or was it a CCNA? One of the two. And at any rate, I was in a coffee shop because the center was closed for that day, and the website wasn't updated, whatnot, and whatnot, scheduling conflict. But anyway, I went to a coffee shop nearby, and I overheard some people talking about um, the CC, what is it, wireless. So it was a certified wireless network administrator. They were talking about it. And I had, obviously I worked in wireless before, microwave, satcom. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. What is that? And I thought to myself, just like listening, right? And I wrote it down. Sure enough, I got the cert. Look at that. And that little nugget of information that I gathered from that. It doesn't always work that way, but in my case, it did. So yay for me, right? I will say that as far as action is concerned, there's many different like facets of action, right? For instance, it might be something as simple and it's just instead of doing this large thing, this big giant thing, it can be one small thing that leads up to these big things. For example, YouTube, starting your own YouTube channel. So the first step is just to get an account, Gmail account, get a YouTube account. That's the first step. And, once after that, okay, I got that. I got that step. I'm on my way. This is step one. Good. And step two is channel art, or just making a video. Go to Canva, make some channel art, or make a video for that matter. That's step two. And then that's it. That's it. Those two steps right there. Done. And then now you have a YouTube channel, right? I'll tell you, as far as YouTube is concerned, because I have a YouTube channel, put some content on there. You you won't see a lot of growth initially, and I haven't either, and that's normal. I'll tell you, I've heard individuals say like they put up like 500 videos until they started to get some traction, and I've only put like maybe 100, maybe 100. I don't even know how many it is, and you know it's okay. It's no big deal because I figure if I just couldn't keep putting up videos like 3 a week, then those individuals who have YouTube, who maybe quit after a year or after 3 months, I'm taking their spot. And it is what it is. And then as far as the podcast is concerned, put a podcast up every week. I'm trying to do that. And I've helped other people put up podcasts before, start podcasts. Some have gone to have like 4 or 5 podcasts. 2 individuals that I know about had just had one video, or almost 2 years now time, had one podcast or one episode basically, and then they quit, right? And it is what it is. That's called action, right? So that's really the key right there. If you want to know like some sort of like magical pill to take to be successful. I mean, I can only say, well, I'd probably say two things really. Momentum and action. Probably that. I'd say those two things. Just doing something, whatever it is. If it's a Udemy course that you want to create, there's lots of Udemy courses out there, but they're not you. They're not like you. They don't do the same thing you do. They don't have your charisma. They don't have your personality. They don't have what you have. They don't come across as friendly or whatever. You know, for instance, you might want to create a Udemy course, Udemy.com, and you speak another language. That is a market that I don't even, because I only speak one right now, and that's English. As one of my friends says, English, right? But I only speak one right now. And if you speak more than that, you're heads and tails over me as far as that market is concerned. And that goes as far as podcasts are concerned as well. That stands for that too, because you know another language that I don't, and you can go to another audience, and you can talk about what you talk about on that podcast or on that YouTube channel or on that Udemy course. And I'll tell you another thing, right, about Udemy. Now that we're just talking, like we're having a chat here on this podcast, and it's this. when you have a Udemy course and when you have content, right, and you're like a, what do you call it? You're I don't know about influencer. What I would call the word is, you have something tangible for the marketplace. It's a lot different than if you can work for somebody and, work for your local city or whatnot. And maybe you have friends or relatives who buy your product or whatever. But the rest of the world is getting your content via podcast or YouTube or Udemy. And what that does for you, from a psychological standpoint, having experienced it just when you have those down days and you're like, man, am I doing something right here? Am I good? Everybody has those, nobody can stay. It is just a common thing. But in those days that are like, whoa, I don't know if I'm on the right track. You're like, oh, you know what? There is, let's say 13,000 or 2,000 individuals who have your course, or 1,000 people have your course, or even 10 people who have your course, or 10 people who watch your video. That's 10 humans that's 10 humans that watched your video. That's amazing, right? Wow. And if somebody buys your product, wow, they bought your product. Wow. Awesome. And I can tell you, it's an everyday thing to gain their trust, regain their trust, if you will. So very well. I appreciate everybody. Grateful for you listening to this podcast. Have a great day.